Picture this. It's 10:41 a.m. on a Tuesday in Hat Yai, Thailand. The air in the vault is so thick, so humid, you can almost drink it. The only sound is the hum of an industrial air conditioner, fighting a battle it will never win against the jungle heat outside. An auditor, a man in a cheap, sweat-stained shirt, lifts a bar of gold. It's marked 999.9 fine. It has a serial number. It looks perfect. But when he places it on the digital scale, the number that flashes up is wrong. It's off by 41%. He tries another. Same result. And another. He calls his manager. The manager calls the owners. Within 3 hours, the Hat Yai secure storage facility is swarming with men who do not look like police. They look like businessmen, but their eyes are hard and they move with a purpose that is terrifying. They begin a full audit, not a random check. By sunset, they understand the truth. 212 kilograms of gold bullion, gone. Replaced, bar by bar, with 2,100 identical bars of gold-plated tungsten. A vanishing act worth over $80 million. In exactly 14 minutes, the branch manager, Surachai, will be dragged into a black Mercedes. His life, as he knows it, is over. The head of security will be taken next. 2 night guards will simply disappear. But here's what makes this story truly chilling. The syndicate that owned the gold will never know they were robbed by their own low-level auditor. They'll torture and ruin the wrong man, destroy his family, and make the guards vanish, all while believing they've closed the case. They will never ever suspect that the man who balanced their books, the man they never even learned the last name of, was the same man who bled their vault dry. This is the true story of the perfect ledger. A crime built not on force, but on mathematics, and the terrible price of being invisible. How do you steal $80 million without ever pulling a gun? And what happens when the perfect plan requires the perfect sacrifice? Let me take you back to where it all began. 2 years before that humid Tuesday, Anand was nobody. Literally nobody. At 39 years old, he was the man society had trained itself not to see. A senior auditor at Hat Yai Secure Storage, earning 28,000 baht a month, roughly $900, to verify the digital records of a fortune he could never touch. Anand had worked for the syndicate's storage company for 6 years. 6 years of checking ledgers, balancing accounts, and running diagnostics on the inventory software. To the wealthy owners who occasionally swept through, he was furniture. To the manager, Surachai, he was just the numbers guy. Invisible, forgettable, blending into the hum of the servers. But furniture has eyes, and furniture has ears. During his first 5 years, Anand heard everything. While running reports in his small, windowless office, he'd overhear the owners joking about customs officials they'd bribed. While fixing a printer in the manager's office, he'd listen to Surachai make sloppy, boastful calls about his gambling wins, and, more often, his losses. Anand was a man of precise, almost painful intelligence. He had a degree in actuarial science. He could have worked in Bangkok, in Singapore. But a family illness had kept him in the south, and now he was stuck. He was a thoroughbred racehorse being used to pull a garbage cart. And he knew it. He despised the men he worked for. He despised their casual, sloppy wealth. They were lazy, protected by money, while he, the brilliant one, was a ghost. He didn't just see their arrogance. He saw their vulnerabilities. He saw the gaping holes in their system, holes left by that same arrogance. The conversation that changed his life happened on a rainy Thursday in July. Anand was in the server room, rerouting a cable, when the owner and a new, very wealthy client came in from the vault. The client was nervous about the security. The owner laughed, a loud barking sound that Anand hated. He clapped the client on the back. "Don't worry," the owner said. "Our system is perfect. Every bar is scanned. Every gram is accounted for, digitally. We have guards, cameras, everything." The client pointed to a pallet of gold. "But what about the bars themselves? What if someone swaps one?" The owner waved his hand dismissively. "Who could do that? Our manager, Surachai, checks the weights himself." And then Surachai, who was following them like a puppy, added his own foolish comment. Exactly. And besides, a little weight variance is normal. Dust, humidity, scale calibration. As long as the count is right and the barcodes match the ledger, everything is perfect. We only do a full manual weight audit once a year. It's too much work. Anand froze. He stopped moving. He held his breath. As long as the count is right and the barcodes match the ledger, we only do a full manual weight audit once a year. They weren't guarding gold. They were guarding barcodes. They were guarding a digital list. Anand continued routing his cable. His expression never changed. But inside, his mind, a mind built for complex equations, had just been given a new problem to solve. He wasn't a criminal. He was an auditor who had never stolen so much as a paperclip. How could someone like him rob a syndicate vault? The answer was simple. He wouldn't. He would just balance the books. Anand wasn't like Luis Alvarez, the janitor who needed to be given access. Anand already had the keys to the kingdom. He was the one who built the kingdom's gates. He was the senior auditor. He had level 9 administrative access to the inventory mainframe. He could, if he wanted, delete $1 billion with a keystroke, and the system would simply accept it as fact. But deletion was loud. It left a hole. Anand didn't want to leave a hole. He wanted to leave a perfect, smooth surface. For the next 6 months, Anand did nothing. He didn't steal. He didn't plan. He studied. He became a digital ghost in his own system. He worked late, long after everyone else had gone home, telling them he was running deep diagnostics for the Singapore partners. What he was really doing was building a ghost ledger, a perfect, parallel database, hidden on a partitioned sector of the server that only he knew existed. He learned every line of the inventory software's code. He learned its flaws. The first flaw was the cameras. They recorded everything, 24/7. But the digital archives were stored on a local server. A perfect, parallel database, hidden on a partitioned sector of the server that only he knew existed. He learned every line of the inventory software's code. He learned its flaws. The first flaw was the cameras. They recorded everything, 24/7. But the digital archives were stored on a local server. The same server Anand managed. He discovered he could access the archives not as a video file, but as raw data. He could, with time, edit the archives. He could replace a 10-minute loop of himself in the vault with a 10-minute loop of an empty vault. It was difficult, a digital surgery of immense complexity. It took him 2 months to perfect the technique. The second flaw was the guards. He studied the night shift. There were 2. The first was Boonmi, an older man, a veteran, hired by Surachai's father, untouchable. And as Anand confirmed by reviewing 400 hours of night shift footage, he was asleep in the break room from 1:45 a.m. to 4 a.m. every single night, like clockwork. The second was Pichai, a young, nervous man related to someone in the local police. He wasn't asleep. He was glued to his smartphone, playing online games and watching videos. His eyes never left his small screen. The final flaw was the one Surachai had given him, the audits. The quarterly audits were a joke. Surachai would walk in, scan 10 bars at random, weigh one of them, clap his hands, and sign the sheet. The annual deep audit was the only threat. It was the one time external auditors came in. They weighed everything. Anand checked the calendar. The next annual deep audit was 18 months away. He had 18 months to become a ghost, steal a mountain of gold, and frame the very men who ignored him. Anand was a man who lived on a diet of quiet, simmering resentment. But the spark that truly lit the fire was, as it so often is, a small, petty humiliation. It was a Monday morning, the beginning of the rainy season. Anand had just arrived. He was holding a stack of ledger reports, his one good suit clean and pressed. The manager, Surachai, burst out of his office, yelling into his phone. He was clearly arguing about a gambling debt. "I told you! The payment is coming!" he shouted, not looking where he was going. He slammed directly into Anand. Hot, bitter coffee flew from Surachai's mug, all over Anand's white shirt and the front of his jacket. The ledger reports scattered on the floor. Anand stood there dripping, shocked into silence. Surachai didn't apologize. He looked at the mess on Anand's shirt, then at Anand, and he laughed. "Aya, books," he said, using the nickname Anand loathed. "You look a mess." He reached into his pocket, pulled out a crumpled 500 baht note, and stuffed it into Anand's shirt pocket. "Go get that cleaned, and hurry up, I need those reports." He walked off, still yelling into his phone. Anand stood there for a full minute. The coffee was scalding his chest. The 500 baht note felt like acid. It wasn't just coffee. It was the complete, utter, crushing disrespect, the casual dismissal of his entire existence. That night, Anand didn't go home. He sat in his office in the dark, the stained shirt still clinging to him. He opened a new, encrypted file on his hidden partition. He typed one name, Surachai. The plan was no longer an intellectual exercise. It was now a mission. He would not just rob this place. He would annihilate Surachai. He would use Surachai's own sloppiness, his own vices, as the building blocks of a prison cell. Anand began to cast his roles. The mastermind, the scapegoat. Surachai. He was perfect. He gambled. Anand knew this from the phone calls, and by a keylogger Anand had quietly installed on Surachai's computer 6 months prior. He saw the websites. He saw the desperate emails to bookies. A gambling addict in charge of a vault? It was the perfect motive. The accomplice, the inside man, Pichai. The young guard, who was always on his phone. Anand started watching him more closely. He saw him skimming from the petty cash drawer for the coffee machine. Just small amounts. But it showed a flaw, a willingness to steal. The negligence, the weak link. Boon Mi, the old guard who slept. He wasn't a criminal. He was just tired. But in the story Anand was writing, his sleep wouldn't be laziness. It would be complicity. Anand's plan formed, sharp and cold as a shard of glass. He would commit the perfect crime. And he would create a perfect, irrefutable, and completely false trail of evidence that pointed directly to Surachai, Pichai, and Boon Mi. He wouldn't just steal the gold. He would frame them for it. He would use the syndicate's own ruthless nature to destroy them. The plan had a fatal flaw, the gold. How does a 140-pound auditor, a man who blends in, walk out of a high-security vault with 2,100 kilograms of gold? That's 4,600 pounds. It's the weight of a pickup truck. He couldn't. And then he realized he didn't have to. Not all at once. He had 18 months. That was roughly 540 days. He didn't need to move a truck. He just needed to move one bar at a time. But first, he needed the replacements, the fake gold. This was the genius of the Luis Alvarez plan, the scapegoats. But Anand's plan was different. He needed physical replacements. He couldn't just use lead. Lead is 41% less dense than gold. It would be discovered at the first random weight check. He taught himself metallurgy. Late at night, his office lit only by the glow of his monitor, Anand became an expert in high-density metals. And he found his answer. Tungsten has a density of 19.25 grams per cubic centimeter. Gold has a density of 19.32 grams per cubic centimeter. The difference is less than 0.5%. It is, to any scale outside a physics laboratory, identical. A gold-plated tungsten bar is a perfect forgery. But how does a quiet auditor buy 2,100 custom-milled tungsten bars? He used their own money. Anand was in charge of the operational budgets for vault maintenance, server upgrades, new cameras, cleaning supplies. It was an account Surachai never ever looked at. He created a ghost company. Southern Thai Industrial Metals. He built a fake website for it. He registered it in Malaysia. He then began, slowly, to siphon money from the maintenance budget. An invoice for new server racks here. A bill for HVAC filter upgrades there. Tiny, invisible transfers. He contacted an industrial supplier in Guangzhou, China, not as Anan, as Mr. Lim, the procurement manager for STIM. He ordered his first sample, a single tungsten blank, milled to the exact millimeter-precise dimensions of the bullion bars in his vault. He had those dimensions because he'd measured one with a digital caliper 6 months ago. When the sample arrived, hidden in a crate of server fans, he took it to the next level. He needed it plated. He found a small, struggling jewelry plating shop in a town 50 kilometers away. He went in person on a Saturday. He told the owner he had a new line of luxury executive gifts for a Singaporean company. He showed him the tungsten bar. Could he plate it in 24-karat gold to a thickness of 100 microns? The owner, seeing a huge cash order, eagerly agreed. A week later, Annan held the first forgery in his hands. It was beautiful. It felt heavy. It shined. He brought it back to the warehouse late at night. He went into the vault. He placed it on the digital scale. The weight was perfect. He then used a handheld barcode duplicator, bought with petty cash as a backup inventory scanner, and copied the barcode from a real gold bar onto a new sticker. He placed it on the tungsten bar. It was identical. It was a perfect, worthless copy. Annan began his 18-month production run. One by one, tungsten blanks were ordered, shipped to his ghost company's rented mailbox, driven to the plater, and then smuggled into the warehouse inside empty water cooler jugs or boxes of archive files. He stored them, one by one, in a hidden compartment he'd built beneath a loose floor tile in the server room. While the forge was running, he built his new life. He didn't need an El Artista. He was his own. He used his siphoned maintenance funds to buy a new identity. Not a fake one, a real one. He found a man in northern Thailand, in Chiang Mai, who had a similar age and build, but who was a hopeless drug addict. For a small, steady supply of cash, the man gave Annan his identity card, his passport, his entire life. Annan became Mr. Chanchai. He opened a bank account in Singapore under this new name. He practiced the signature. He memorized the man's family history. The janitor, Luis Alvarez, had to buy a new life. Annan just stole one. The heist did not happen on one night. It happened on 500 nights. It was a slow, patient, methodical bleed. Here was the routine. 1:45 a.m. Annan, sitting in his office, watches his monitor. On camera 4, he sees Boon Mei, the old guard, walk to the break room. On camera 7, he sees Pichai, the young guard, plug in his headphones and start his game. 1:50 a.m. Annan goes to the server room. He retrieves one gold-plated tungsten bar from under the floor tile. He hides it in his auditor's satchel. 1:55 a.m. He walks to the vault. He uses his own high-level security code. The door opens with a heavy, pneumatic hiss. He enters. He is allowed to be here. If anyone asks, he is running a spot check on a humidity sensor. 1:57 a.m. He walks to rack 14B. He takes one real, solid gold bar. He slides the fake tungsten bar into its exact place. The count is still correct. The barcode is correct. The weight feels correct. 2:00 a.m. He leaves the vault. The door hisses shut. 2:05 a.m. He is back in his office. He places the real gold bar into a hollowed-out defective server casing that is marked for disposal. This is the steal. Now comes the real crime, the frame-up. 2:10 a.m. Annan logs into the server mainframe. He accesses the digital archives for the vault camera. He finds the 10-minute block of time he was inside. He surgically replaces the raw data from that feed with a 10-minute loop of an empty vault. He saves it. Now, all digital records show the vault was empty. 2:15 a.m. He logs out. And he logs back in. This time, he uses Surachai's administrator password. He had stolen it a year ago with his keylogger. 2:16 a.m. Using Surachai's login, he accesses the inventory ledger. He doesn't change the count. He just adds a single, tiny variance note to the bar he just swapped. The note reads, "Manual weight check discrepancy noted. 0.115 G. Humidity. Approved." He is creating a digital shadow, a trail of breadcrumbs. It now looks like Surachai is the one finding tiny errors and correcting them in the middle of the night. It looks like a manager covering his tracks. 2:20 a.m. He logs out. Then, he does one more thing. He accesses Surachai's work computer remotely. He opens a hidden, encrypted file. In it, he pastes a link to a Chinese tungsten supplier's website. He adds a note. Payment sent for batch 14. He is writing a diary of a crime, and he is signing Surachai's name to every page. 6:00 a.m. Anand's shift ends. He nods to the morning staff. He walks out the front door carrying the defective server casing. No one stops him. Why would they? He's just books. The boring auditor, taking home broken junk to tinker with. He drives home. He melts the gold bar down in a small, high-temperature electric furnace in his shed. He recasts it into nondescript shapes. Lumps, small plates. Once a month, he takes a sick day and drives south, across the border into Malaysia. He has a network of illicit gold dealers. He sells the melted-down gold piece by piece for cash. Different dealer every time. He then wires that cash, through a series of shell accounts, to his Singapore bank. The account of Mr. Chanchai. He did this, over and over and over, one bar at a time, one digital breadcrumb at a time. He even helped Pichai, the young guard. One night, he accidentally dropped a small 1-ounce gold coin near the guard's desk. He filmed, with a hidden micro camera, as Pichai saw it, looked around, and quickly pocketed it. He didn't use the footage, he just saved it to the server, in a hidden folder, ready for the investigators to find. It would be the proof they needed that Pichai was in on it, receiving payments from his boss. For 18 months, Anand was 2 men. By day, the quiet, disrespected auditor. By night, a ghost, a forger, and a meticulous architect of another man's destruction. The week before the annual deep audit, the audit he knew he could not fool, Anand had done it. 2,100 bars swapped. His Singapore account held $8,300,000. The floor beneath the server room was empty. The server casings in his shed were all gone. His digital trap was set. Surachai's computer was now a treasure trove of evidence. Fake emails to offshore accounts. Bookmarked tungsten supplier sites. A hidden ledger file, created by Anand, that detailed the profits from the swap, with payout amounts for P, Pichai, and B, Bunmi. Anand's final move was physical. On his last night, he went into Surachai's office. The manager was already gone. Anand opened his desk drawer. He planted a small 10-ounce bar of pure gold, one he'd saved for this, at the very back, underneath a pile of old files. The go bag. The sloppy mistake. Then he went to the break room. He found a small baggie of white powder, amphetamine which he'd bought on the street, and tucked it deep into the lining of Bunmi's locker, a gift from Surachai to help him stay awake. He was done. The next morning, Anand walked into Surachai's office. He requested a 2-week emergency leave. "My mother is very sick in Chiang Mai," he said, his voice quiet and respectful. Surachai, busy on his phone, didn't even look up. Fine. Just go. Don't bother me." Anand bowed slightly. "Thank you, sir." He walked to his own office. He gathered his small box of personal items. A photo of his late mother, a coffee mug, a small plant. He walked out of Hat Yai secure storage for the last time. He didn't look back. He didn't go to Chiang Mai. He took a local bus to the Hat Yai train station. He took the train south to the border. He walked across into Malaysia. In Kuala Lumpur, he threw his old phone, his old wallet, and his old life into a river. He went to the airport. Using his very real, very legitimate passport, in the name of Chanchai, he boarded a flight to Singapore. He landed, walked into the Raffles Place branch of the Overseas Chinese Banking Corporation, and said, "My name is Chanchai. I'd like to check my balance." He vanished. It all happened exactly as Anand had planned. The audit happened. The fake bar was found. The 10:41 a.m. discovery. The syndicate's internal loss prevention team sealed the building. They didn't call the police. Not yet. They went straight to Surachai's office. They found the gold bar in his desk. They turned on his computer. They found the hidden files, the ledger, the emails, the tungsten supplier bookmarks. They reviewed the camera footage. They saw Boonmi sleeping, night after night. They saw Pichai pocketing the gold coin. They checked the digital logs. They saw Surachai's credentials being used, night after night, to correct weight variances. The case was open and shut in 4 hours. What happened next was not justice. It was a cleansing. The black Mercedes took Surachai. He was tortured for 3 days. They didn't want information. They wanted a confession, and they wanted to know where the rest of the gold was. Surachai, delirious with pain, a man who didn't even understand the crime, confessed to everything. He named Pichai and Boonmi. He told them what they wanted to hear. Pichai was found 2 days later, an overdose in his small apartment. His family was told he was a disgrace. Boonmi, the old guard, simply disappeared. He left for work one morning and never arrived. His wife filed a missing person report, but the police, after a suggestion from the syndicate, never followed up. Surachai's life was systematically dismantled. After he signed the confession, he was handed over to the real police. The evidence was anonymous lie delivered. It was overwhelming. His family was ruined. His assets, his home, his wife's jewelry, all seized by the syndicate as repayment. It wasn't $80 million, but it was a start. He was sentenced to life in prison. A broken, bankrupted, and utterly confused man, blamed for a heist of impossible genius. 4 people were destroyed. Surachai, Pichai, Boonmi, and the auditor Anand, a man who, in the syndicate's records, was simply marked as resigned, whereabouts unknown. They never even looked for him. Why would they? They had their mastermind. 6 months later. A penthouse apartment overlooking Lake Zurich. Snow is falling outside the floor-to-ceiling windows. A man, impeccably dressed, sips a cup of oolong tea. His name is Chan Chai. He is reading a financial report on a tablet. In another window, a small, obscure news item from a Thai paper is open. It details, in one small paragraph, that the appeal for Hat Yai gold heist mastermind Surachai has been denied. The man feels nothing. No guilt, no fear, no relief. He just feels balanced. He closes the news tab. He looks at his real ledger, his private bank account. The numbers are all perfect, all accounted for. Luis Alvarez, the janitor, was haunted by the blood. But Anand, the auditor, felt no such thing. He was a man of numbers, and the equation had been solved. The syndicate killed for control. Anand had destroyed lives for order. And what haunted the syndicate wasn't the blood. It was the money. They never found the $80 million. They wrote it off. An $80 million lesson in better management. They never knew Anand existed. They never knew the man they ignored, the man they called Books, was the only man smart enough to see that they weren't guarding gold at all. They were just guarding a list. And the perfect crime didn't leave witnesses. It just left a perfectly balanced and perfectly false set of books.